Kalen stared at the data, scrolling across his monitor. The steady stream of trade reports from the outer sectors bringing a sense of routine to an otherwise unremarkable day at Galactic Hub Station. As a mid-level analyst and diplomat for the Lyran Federation, these reports were his daily bread, tedious but necessary. His elongated fingers skimmed over the holographic interface, categorizing shipments, noting tariff discrepancies, and filing the occasional request for clarification. The message that would change everything arrived not through official channels, but through the undercurrent of whispers that perpetually flowed through the hub. Kalen first noticed it when Trell, a Vexian information broker with whom he occasionally traded harmless gossip, approached his workstation with unusual urgency. "Heard about the human geologist?" Trell asked, his translucent membranes fluttering with agitation. Kalen's inner eyelids blinked in confusion. "I haven't. Should I have?" Trell leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper despite the privacy field around Kalen's workspace. "Small independent transport, single human scientist, Dr. Eris Thorn. Mapping asteroids in the Caldara system." The disputed territory? Kalen felt his neck ridges stiffen involuntarily. The Caldara system had been a point of contention for decades, claimed by the aggressive Thrax Empire, but considered neutral under Concordat regulations. "Exactly." Sent out a brief distress call mentioning a Thrax cruiser. Then nothing. Trell's membranes pulsed with a reddish tint, the Vexian equivalent of foreboding. That was 16 standard hours ago. Kalen stored the information carefully in his mind. Could be equipment failure, or pirates using false identifiers. Could be, Trell agreed, but his tone suggested otherwise. But the humans are unsettled. Their diplomatic staff is unusually active today. After Trell departed, Kalen couldn't focus on the trade reports. The Thrax were known for their territorial aggression and casual cruelty, but even they usually avoided direct confrontation with humans. Everyone in the galaxy with any sense of self-preservation did. The official channels remained silent on the matter, but the whispers grew louder as the day cycle progressed. By mid-shift, variations of the story had reached every corner of the hub. The anxiety was palpable, especially among species who had longer memories or better historical records of what happened when humans were provoked. When Kalen's direct superior, elder diplomat Savari, summoned him to her office, he knew the situation had escalated beyond rumor. Savari was ancient by Lyran standards, her silver-blue scales dulled with age, but her eyes sharp with the wisdom of centuries. She gestured for Kalen to sit while she secured the room against surveillance. "I need you to monitor this situation discreetly," she said without preamble. "Gather verified information only." The Thrax ambassador is publicly denying any incident, claiming the human transport likely fell victim to equipment failure or piracy. "And what do we believe?" Kalen asked carefully. Savari's expression remained neutral, but her tail coiled tightly, a sign of tension. "What we believe is irrelevant. What matters is where this leads. If the rumors are true, if a Thrax vessel did attack a human civilian scientist." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Understand," Kalen said. And he did. He had studied enough human history to know their reactions to perceived injustice could be swift and disproportionate, terrifyingly so. This Dr. Thorn, Savari continued, was apparently well regarded in scientific circles. Strictly non-political, known for meticulous work on asteroid composition. His last transmitted journal entry was recorded just before the distress call. She transferred a file to Kalen's personal device. Later, in the privacy of his quarters, he would review it, the calm, measured voice of Dr. Eris Thorn describing a fascinating mineral formation he'd discovered, his excitement purely academic, his last moments peaceful before whatever violent end had claimed him. The confirmation came during the next cycle. Emergency protocols activated throughout the hub as the Galactic Concordat, the governing body that maintained the uneasy peace between dozens of spacefaring civilizations, called an emergency session. Kalen, along with other diplomatic staff, crowded around information terminals as the announcement was made. Debris from a human transport had been found in the Caldara system, bearing unmistakable signs of Thrax weapons fire. Dr. Eris Thorne was confirmed dead. The bureaucratic machine lurched into motion. Senior delegates called for committees to be formed, for extended investigations, for diplomatic communiques to be dispatched. The Thrax ambassador, a towering reptilian with ceremonial battle scars etched into his scales, offered weak denials and attempted to complicate the issue with procedural objections. Kalen watched the proceedings with growing unease. The Thrax were playing for time, but anyone who understood humans knew that time was the one thing they wouldn't get. The atmosphere in the chamber shifted perceptibly when the human ambassador arrived. Eva Rostova entered without the usual ceremonial announcements. A middle-aged woman with silver-streaked dark hair and a face that might have been carved from stone. Her eyes, Kalen thought, were like the ancient glaciers of his homeworld, seemingly still but concealing devastating power beneath. Rostova bypassed the speaking queue, stepping directly to the central podium. The chamber fell silent. An unprovoked act of murder against a Terran citizen demands immediate consequences, she said, her voice cold and precise. The Concordat's procedures have been noted, but Terran procedures are now in effect. Before anyone could respond, she activated a personal communication device, spoke a brief, encoded message, and returned to her seat without further explanation. The silence that followed was deafening. Kalen felt a chill run through his body. There was something dangerous in the air now, a sense of invisible wheels turning, of forces being set in motion that none of them could stop. Elder Savari caught his eye from across the chamber and made a subtle gesture, gather information. Within minutes, rumors began circulating about Terran fleet movements. Most dismissed them as impossible. The nearest significant human military presence was supposedly days away at maximum FTL speeds. But Kalen, leveraging his Lyran contacts throughout the hub, began receiving disconnected but troubling confirmations of unusual activity along the Thrax border regions. A cephalid data analyst reported energy signatures consistent with multiple large vessels transitioning to FTL near Junction Station 7. A Meridian trader claimed their route had been diverted due to unscheduled military exercises in what had previously been open space. Most concerning, a Lyran scout patrol had reportedly been advised to vacate a particular sector immediately and without deviation by Terran Fleet Command. Kalen compiled the information and transmitted it directly to Elder Savari. Her response was immediate and unusually terse. Continue monitoring. Advise all Lyran vessels to maintain distance from Thrax space and any identified Terran fleet assets. The emergency session of the Concordat had devolved into predictable factions, those demanding immediate sanctions against the Thrax, those counseling caution and further investigation, and those attempting to remain neutral while protecting their own interests. The Thrax ambassador had moved from denial to bluster, threatening trade repercussions against anyone who rushed to judgment based on fabricated evidence. The interruption came 3 hours into the debate. A junior communications officer burst into the chamber, a breach of protocol so severe that the proceedings halted instantly. The officer rushed to the council president, whispered urgently in their ear, and handed over a data device. The president, a normally unflappable Arcturian, visibly paled. This session is interrupted by an emergency notification, they announced, voice wavering slightly. We are receiving confirmed reports that a Terran battle group, identified as the Aegis Fleet, has appeared in the Corvash system in proximity to the primary Thrax shipyards. Chaos erupted in the chamber. The Thrax ambassador roared in outrage. Other delegates called for order, and information devices chimed throughout the room as everyone sought confirmation. Impossible, the Thrax ambassador snarled. The nearest human fleet elements are days away at their fastest speeds. But the incoming data didn't lie. Somehow, a massive human battle group had appeared virtually instantaneously near the heart of Thrax military industry. The implications were staggering. not just a threat to the Thrax, but the revelation of technological capabilities far beyond what humans had publicly demonstrated. Kalen found himself in a crowded viewing area as the feed from Corvash was patched through to the hub's main displays. The images showed a formation of Terran warships unlike anything in public records. Sleeker, more angular vessels with unfamiliar propulsion signatures, arranged in perfect tactical formation around what must be the flagship, a massive vessel bearing the name Retribution in human script. A system-wide transmission began, and the screens filled with the image of a human male of East Asian descent, wearing the distinctive uniform of a Terran fleet admiral. His face was a study in discipline calm. This is Admiral Jian of the Terran fleet vessel Retribution, addressing the Thrax High Command and all military and civilian authorities in the Corvash system. He began, his voice level and precise. Approximately 20 standard hours ago, a civilian Terran scientist, Dr. Eris Thorne, was murdered by Thrax military forces while conducting peaceful research in neutral space. The Terran Authority has confirmed this act of unprovoked aggression through multiple sources of evidence. The Admiral paused, his expression unchanging. The following demands are non-negotiable and must be met within 3 standard hours. 1. The immediate surrender of the Thrax cruisers Fong of Dominion and Sovereign Claw, which participated in the attack. 2. The surrender of all crew members and commanding officers responsible for the attack to face justice under Terran law. 3. Verifiable evidence of the disarmament of similar strike assets within this sector. Failure to comply will result in the systematic destruction of the Corvash shipyards and orbital defense systems. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The transmission ended, replaced by a countdown timer. The viewing area erupted in shocked commentary. Kalen found himself analyzing not just the ultimatum, but the implications of how it had been delivered. The humans had clearly developed jump drive technology far more advanced than they had revealed, allowing them to bypass normal space travel limitations. The size and composition of the fleet suggested they had anticipated and prepared for exactly this scenario. And the precision of their demands, naming specific vessels, indicated intelligence capabilities that had penetrated Thrax security. Elder Savari appeared at his side, her usually composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "Not just the current crisis, but the balance of power throughout known space." Kalen nodded. "The Thrax will test them. They must to save face. And then we will see exactly how far the humans are willing to go," Savari replied. They didn't have to wait long for the answer. As the deadline approached, intercepted Thrax communications indicated internal chaos. Blame was being assigned, sacrificial officers were being identified, and desperate plans were being formulated. The Thrax High Command, rather than immediately capitulating, chose to probe human resolve. A squadron of Thrax fighter craft launched from the surface of Corvash on an intercept course with the Terran fleet. It was a token force, not enough to pose any real threat, but enough to serve as a challenge, a test of human determination. The response was immediate and devastating. Point defense systems across the Terran fleet activated in perfect synchronization. From Kalen's perspective, watching the sensor feeds, it was like witnessing a dance, one choreographed with lethal precision. The Thrax fighters were eliminated without a single Terran capital ship having to maneuver or launch countermeasures. Simultaneously, a single kinetic strike was launched from the Retribution. It bypassed the planetary defense grid as if it weren't there and struck the main Thrax command bunker on Corvash with surgical precision. The strike disabled the facility without causing collateral damage, but the message was unmistakable. The humans could have destroyed it completely had they chosen to. The Thrax capitulated 7 minutes before the deadline expired. The designated cruisers powered down their systems. The named officers were taken into custody by Thrax military police under the remote supervision of Terran drones, and verification protocols for wider disarmament began. Admiral Jin's acknowledgement was as brief as his ultimatum had been. Compliance received and verified. Terran boarding parties will now take custody of the prisoners and evidence. Technical teams will oversee the disarmament process. Any interference will result in immediate military response. In the viewing area of the hub, the crowd had fallen silent. This wasn't the protracted standoff many had expected. It was a display of overwhelming technical superiority and cold efficiency that had resolved in hours what might have taken months through diplomatic channels. Kalen and Elder Savari retreated to a secure conference room to discuss the implications. Their jump technology alone changes every strategic calculation in the quadrant, Savari said, pacing the length of the room. If they can deploy capital ships instantly, without relying on established jump points or traditional FTL. It's not just the technology, Kalen replied, reviewing the footage of the Thrax fighter's destruction. It's the willingness to use it so decisively. One human civilian died, and they mobilized a fleet that could conquer a mid-sized empire. Savari nodded grimly. Yet they didn't. They could have destroyed Corvash entirely, but they limited themselves to disabling a specific target and removing specific threats. She paused, considering. There's a calculation there, a precision to their retribution. A message, Kalen agreed. To the Thrax, certainly, but also to everyone else. Watching. Indeed. Savari's facial ridges flattened, a sign of deep thought among Lyrans. Our policy of cautious neutrality toward the humans seems increasingly wise. Their technology exceeds our estimates. Their military efficiency is undeniable, and their response when provoked is... She searched for the right word. Absolute. At the reconvened emergency session of the Concordat, the atmosphere had transformed completely. The Thrax ambassador was conspicuously absent, reportedly recalled to his homeworld for consultations. The various factions that had been so vociferous hours before now sat in subdued silence. When Ambassador Rostova took the podium, the chamber was utterly still. The situation has been resolved, she said simply. The perpetrators have been taken into custody and will face trial under Terran law for the murder of Dr. Eristhorn. Specific military assets that posed a threat to civilian traffic have been neutralized. The Terran Authority considers this matter closed and will not entertain any interference with our judicial process. The unspoken warning hung in the air. Do not test us as the Thrax did. Kalen, observing from his assigned position, noted the varied reactions across the chamber. Fear was the predominant emotion, certainly, but there was also reluctant respect and a quiet realignment of priorities. Species that had been at odds with each other for generations found common ground in their wariness of human power. Allies of the Thrax distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the humiliated empire. The reports from Thrax base in the following days painted a picture of an empire in crisis. The military had been paralyzed in that sector, with command structures thrown into disarray. Political instability followed as factions blamed each other for the catastrophic miscalculation that had led to Dr. Thorne's death. 1 week after the incident, Kalen completed his comprehensive report for the Lyran government. Sitting in his quarters, he found himself thinking about Dr. Eristhorn, a solitary scientist whose quiet death had triggered an interstellar crisis and reshaped galactic power dynamics within hours. Kalen had reviewed Thorne's final journal entries multiple times. There was nothing remarkable about the man except his passion for his work, his excitement over mineral formations, his meticulous documentation, his peaceful solitude among the asteroids. Yet his death had been deemed so significant by a species that they had revealed previously secret military capabilities and risked war to avenge him. It was this aspect of humanity that both fascinated and terrified Kalen. The absolute value they placed on each human life. Not just their leaders or warriors, but their scientists, their civilians, their most ordinary citizens, created a unified response that more hierarchical species struggled to comprehend. An attack on one was, genuinely and without hyperbole, treated as an attack on all. His conclusion to the Lyran High Council was carefully worded but unambiguous. Humans were a force of nature, dangerous when provoked, but operating according to their own brutal logic centered on the absolute value they placed on each human life. Avoidance of confrontation was best. Alliance was strategic. Opposition was suicidal. The galaxy had changed irreversibly in the space of hours. As Kalen filed his report, a small notification appeared on his personal device. The latest academic journal from the Galactic Scientific Consortium. The lead article was a posthumous publication of Dr. Eris Thorne's research on asteroid composition in the Caldara system, with a foreword dedicating the work to advancing peaceful scientific inquiry across all borders. Kalen allowed himself a moment of ironic appreciation for the sentiment. Even as another part of his screen displayed tactical analyses of the new Terran fleet capabilities that had made such peaceful aspirations possible, or at least made the cost of interfering with them unthinkably high. The next morning, Kalen resumed his routine of analyzing trade reports with a renewed appreciation for the mundane. The hub had returned to its normal rhythms, but beneath the surface, everything had changed. Species that had previously dominated through military might were reassessing their positions. New alliances were being quietly formed, and everyone was paying very close attention to the movements and interests of human vessels throughout the galaxy. 3 days later, a minor incident occurred that confirmed Kalen's analysis. A Meridian trade vessel, claiming navigational error, strayed into a shipping lane reserved for human transport. Terran patrol ships intercepted it within minutes, but, after confirming it was indeed an accident, provided technical assistance and escorted the vessel back to its proper course. The humans were not hostile, merely vigilant and thoroughly prepared. Elder Savari called Kalen to her office to discuss the incident. An interesting contrast, don't you think? She said, offering him a seat. Such courtesy toward a genuine mistake. Such devastation in response to deliberate aggression. They operate on principles, Kalen replied. Complex ones, certainly, and sometimes contradictory by our standards, but consistent within their own framework. You find them fascinating, Savari observed. It wasn't a question. I find them essential to understand, Kalen corrected. After what we witnessed, can we afford not to? Savari's expression softened slightly. The Council was impressed with your analysis. They've approved a new diplomatic initiative, expanding our relationship with the Terran Authority while maintaining our traditional neutrality. You're being assigned as special liaison. Kalen's surprise must have shown on his face, because Savari added, Your perspective is valuable, Kalen. You see them clearly, neither as monsters to be feared, nor as saviors to be worshipped. You see them as they are. And what are they? Kalen asked, genuinely curious about his mentor's perspective. Savari considered for a moment. A species of contradictions, individually vulnerable, collectively formidable, capable of great violence and great compassion. Technological innovators who value individual lives above abstract progress. She paused. Above all, they're defined by their connections to each other. The death of Dr. Thorne mattered not because of who he was, but because he was human. That is both their greatest strength and their most exploitable weakness. Kalen felt a chill at her words. Exploitable is not a term I would associate with humans after recent events. Nor I, Savari agreed quickly. But others might not be so wise. There will always be those who believe they can find advantage in conflict. Her eyes met his directly, which is why your work is so important. Understanding prevents miscalculation. The next cycle, Kalen was introduced to his human counterpart in a new diplomatic initiative, a junior attaché named Marcus Way from the Terran Diplomatic Corps. Way was younger than Kalen had expected, with an open face and easy smile that belied the gravity of his position. I've read your analysis of the Corvash incident, Way said after introductions were complete. Impressive insight into our response patterns. Kalen blinked in surprise. His report had been confidential for the Lyran government only. Way's smile widened at his reaction. Don't worry, we didn't hack your systems. Your council shared it as a gesture of good faith. They believed it demonstrated a commitment to genuine understanding. And did you find it accurate? Kalen asked carefully. Way considered the question. Mostly. You captured our valuation of human life quite well. The part about us being a force of nature, he chuckled. That might have been a bit poetic, but I can't say it's entirely wrong, given the circumstances. They discussed procedural matters for the new diplomatic initiative, but Kalen's mind kept returning to the image of the Terran battle group, appearing, as if from nowhere, above Corvash. Finally, he broached the subject directly. The jump technology your fleet demonstrated. It was beyond anything publicly known about human capabilities. Wei's expression became more guarded. That's correct. How long has the Terran Authority possessed this technology? Wei considered before answering. Let's just say that Dr. Thorne wasn't the first human civilian to be attacked in neutral space. But we hope, given the demonstration, that he will be the last. The implication was clear. The humans had been holding this capability in reserve, waiting until they deemed its revelation necessary. What other technologies might they be concealing? The question was both disturbing and fascinating. As they concluded their meeting, Wei extended a datapad. Ambassador Rostova asked me to share this with you personally. It's Dr. Thorne's complete research archive. She thought the Lyran Xenogeology department might appreciate his methodologies. Kalen accepted the device, recognizing the gesture for what it was, both diplomatic courtesy and subtle reminder of what had precipitated recent events. His work will be studied with the respect it deserves, Kalen assured Wei. Later, reviewing the archive, Kalen was struck by the ordinary nature of Thorne's existence. His research notes were methodical but unremarkable. His personal logs revealed a man who enjoyed solitude, took pleasure in discovery, and missed his family back on Earth. There was nothing to suggest he would become the catalyst for a power shift that would reshape galactic politics. Perhaps that was the point, Kalen reflected. To humans, it hadn't mattered who Eris Thorne was, only that he was one of them, and that his life had value simply because of that fact. 2 cycles later, the first official function of the expanded Lyran-Terran diplomatic initiative took place. A formal reception attended by representatives from both governments. Ambassador Rostova was present, as severe and composed as she had been during the crisis, though she offered Kalen a respectful nod when they were introduced. Your analysis was perceptive, she told him. Few non-humans grasp our perspective so clearly. I merely observed and reported what I saw, Kalen replied. Sometimes that is the most difficult thing, Rostova said, to see what is actually before you, rather than what you expect or fear to see. She glanced around the reception. Many species still don't understand why we responded as we did to Dr. Thorne's death. They think it was disproportionate or performative, a show of force using a convenient excuse. And was it not? Kalen asked, seizing the rare opportunity for direct insight. Rostova's expression didn't change, but her eyes, those glacier eyes, seemed to evaluate him anew. It was necessary, she said finally, not to demonstrate our technology or to intimidate the Thrax, though those were useful secondary outcomes. It was necessary because that is who we are, one life or a million. The principle remains constant, a principle that has made humanity both respected and feared throughout known space, Kalen observed. Fear is a poor foundation for lasting peace, Rostova countered. Respect and understanding. Those are what we seek through initiatives like this one. She inclined her head slightly, though we are not naive about the realities of interspecies relations. As the reception continued, Kalen found himself watching the human delegates with new eyes. They were outwardly similar to many humanoid species. Nothing in their physical appearance suggested the technological prowess or unified determination they had demonstrated. Their strength lay not in their individual capabilities, but in their absolute commitment to each other, and in their willingness to reveal that commitment through decisive action. At the conclusion of the event, Elder Savari joined Kalen as the delegates departed. A successful beginning, she noted. The council is pleased with the progress. Kalen nodded, his thoughts still on Rostova's words. They value understanding above fear. As do all truly advanced civilizations, Savari replied. Fear compels, but understanding convinces. One creates enemies who await opportunity. The other creates allies who see shared benefit. She regarded him thoughtfully. You've changed since the Corvash incident. The galaxy has changed, Kalen said simply. Indeed. Savari gazed out at the stars visible through the hub's vast observation dome. A single death, a single response, and the balance of power shifts like sand in a storm. She turned back to him. Remember Dr. Eris Thorne, Kalen. Not for how he died, but for what his death revealed about humans, yes, but about all of us. About what we value and what we will defend. As Kalen returned to his quarters that night, he reflected on Savari's words. The death of Dr. Thorne had indeed revealed much. Capabilities concealed, priorities clarified, boundaries defined. But it had also opened a door to greater understanding between species who had previously regarded each other with cautious distance. In his personal log, Kalen recorded his final thoughts on the matter. The Terrans have a saying. The price of peace is eternal vigilance. After witnessing their response to the death of a single scientist, I understand this concept more clearly. Their vigilance extends to each individual under their protection, and the price they exact for peace is the absolute recognition of that fact. The incident at Corvash will fade from immediate concern as new crises emerge, but its lesson remains. In this vast and often hostile galaxy, there exists a species that values its members so completely that it will reveal its most closely guarded secrets and risk interstellar war to avenge a single life. Whether this makes humans the most fearsome species in known space or the most admirable depends on one's perspective. Perhaps it is both. What is certain is that no one who witnessed the Terran response will ever again mistake their commitment to their principles or the consequences of testing them.